You've spent years perfecting an identity that pleases everyone but you. Smiling when you're hurting, nodding when you disagree, living every day as a hostage to approval, especially your mother's. But what if being the good child is silently destroying you? What if kindness and perfection aren't strengths, but invisible prisons built by childhood conditioning? Today, you'll discover the hidden truth behind why you can never rest, never relax, never feel enough. Because behind every polite yes you didn't want to say, there's a silent scream your soul is begging you to hear. This video isn't about blaming your past. It's about reclaiming your future. It's about understanding the invisible addiction to perfection, the fear that keeps you trapped, and the courage it takes to finally say no. Not because you're selfish, but because your self-worth is not negotiable. If you're tired of feeling guilty for setting boundaries, exhausted by endless people-pleasing, and ready to finally breathe without anxiety, stay until the end. You'll learn exactly how to rewrite the script you've been following your whole life. But first, if this resonates, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because you deserve content that heals and empowers you, not just entertains you. Now, let's begin. There's a type of pain that doesn't scream. It smiles, it nods. It makes dinner, answers emails, and says no worries while dying inside. This is the prison of the nice one. The man who never speaks up, the woman who never says no. It starts early, when a child learns that love comes with conditions. If you behave, you're praised. If you disagree, you're punished. Not always with words, but with silence, withdrawal, or a shift in tone. Slowly, the child stops being real and starts being good. They become the person their caregivers feel comfortable with, but that comfort costs them their soul. People think people-pleasing is about kindness. It's not. It's about fear. Fear of being abandoned. Fear of being unloved. It's a survival strategy dressed up in politeness. Carl Jung would call this the birth of the false self, the moment your psyche splits between who you are and who you perform to be. It's not just daughters who wear this mask. It's sons too. Especially those raised by emotionally immature or controlling mothers, where love was earned, not given. So the child adapts. They become attuned to everyone else's emotions, except their own. And this isn't compassion. This is psychological hypervigilance. The good child becomes an adult who can't rest. Their mind is always scanning for tension in the room. Did I upset her? Did I disappoint him? They become expert diplomats of emotion, negotiating peace in relationships where no one asked them to. This is the core of toxic perfectionism, the belief that if I can just do everything right, no one will be angry, no one will leave. But deep down, they don't feel safe. And worse, they don't feel real, because everything they are is a performance crafted to avoid rejection, a costume stitched from childhood conditioning. This dynamic is especially strong when the mother wound runs deep. When the mother figure was unpredictable, emotionally absent, or overly controlling, the child learned to suppress conflict. Don't make her angry. Don't be difficult. And for many, this became a life blueprint. Even as adults, they find it hard to set boundaries, to say no, or to express disagreement. The wound doesn't vanish. It migrates. It becomes a filter through which all relationships are seen. Romantic partners, friends, even employers become new versions of the same emotional authority they were once terrified to disappoint. What people don't realize is how much rage hides behind that smile. Repressed anger. Years of swallowing words, ignoring intuition, and giving more than they had. It doesn't disappear, it builds, and eventually it leaks out as burnout, anxiety, resentment, or silent depression. This is emotional repression disguised as strength. She's so calm. He never complains. But inside there's a storm. And it's not just psychological, it's spiritual. Because when you silence your truth to keep the peace, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're betraying the part of your soul that came here to live. Many who carry this wound feel an invisible weight on their chest, a heaviness they can't name. That weight is the grief of never having been seen for who they really are, of always having to earn their place. But what if that pressure wasn't yours to carry? What if the problem isn't that you're too sensitive, but that you were raised in a system where sensitivity was dangerous. The recovery starts with inner child healing. Going back to that moment when you first learned, if I'm real, I'll be punished, if I'm perfect, I'll be safe. That belief is a lie, and it's time to break it. Here's the truth. The people who love you for your obedience don't really love you. They love your submission. Real connection can't grow on a foundation of compliance. You weren't born to be agreeable. You were born to be whole, and wholeness includes anger, sadness, contradiction, and bold boundaries. You don't have to burn your past, but you do have to stop living in it. And it begins by recognizing that the role you were forced to play was never your fault. It was a script written by someone else's pain. You get to rewrite it. Before we move on, I want to invite you to explore the selected resources in the pinned comment. They're powerful tools that can help you go deeper into this recovery. And if this resonates with you so far, leave a comment below sharing if you've ever felt trapped by the need to please others. Now let's talk about where this perfectionism leads and why it silently poisons your entire self-worth, especially when you don't even realize it. Perfection doesn't look like a problem. It looks like success. It looks like the woman who's always polished, polite, and productive, the man who never breaks down, never rests, and always says yes. From the outside, these people seem admirable. Inside, they're crumbling, because perfectionism isn't about excellence, it's about survival. It's the hidden belief that if I make one mistake, I'll be rejected. That belief doesn't grow in safe homes. It grows in childhoods where love came with terms, where affection was withdrawn if you disappointed, and where self-worth was always on trial. This isn't about striving for greatness. It's about trying to be flawless to avoid punishment. Many who carry this wound were the responsible ones. The oldest sibling, the helper, the peacekeeper. They got good at reading faces, detecting moods, and adjusting their behavior like emotional contortionists. Their worth became tied to performance, grades, chores, good behavior. They weren't nurtured, they were measured. And over time, this conditioning hardens into a psychological cage. They don't know how to rest. They don't know how to ask for help, because weakness wasn't safe, and rest felt like laziness. This is the trap of toxic perfectionism. It rewards you just enough to keep you hooked. You get praise, you get approval, but you also get panic attacks at the thought of failure. You smile through exhaustion. You beat yourself up for not doing enough, and even when others applaud you, it feels empty, because deep down, you're not chasing success. You're running from shame. That shame whispers, you'll never be enough unless you overachieve. And the tragedy is most people don't even recognize it as trauma. They think it's ambition. They call it discipline. But it's actually fear wearing a suit. What makes this addiction so dangerous is that it's invisible. Society rewards it. Schools reward it. Workplaces reward it. You get raises, promotions, compliments, but you lose your soul. You lose your ability to be human. You avoid vulnerability like it's a disease. You don't allow messiness. You don't allow softness. Because deep down you believe that if you ever fall apart, no one will catch you. So you build an identity on strength, efficiency, and reliability. But that identity is brittle. And the day it cracks, the collapse is brutal, because you never learned how to be held. In the quiet of the night, perfectionists feel haunted. They lie awake replaying every word they said, every task they missed, every flaw they tried to hide. Their minds become war zones, and their bodies, always tense, always tired. This isn't just psychological, it's physical. Chronic stress, digestive issues, immune problems. Perfectionism doesn't just rob your joy, it damages your health. And the saddest part, most perfectionists don't believe they deserve rest. Even their self-care becomes a performance. Meditation apps, workout routines, skincare rituals, all part of maintaining the image. But inside, they feel hollow. The healing begins when you stop performing for love, when you stop trying to impress a ghost, because most perfectionists aren't chasing the present, they're still trying to earn the love they never got. A parent, a teacher, a partner. Someone who made them feel that being almost enough was their permanent state. But here's the truth. You don't need to be perfect to be worthy. You were never supposed to earn love. It was supposed to be given freely. And if no one ever told you that, Let this be the moment you begin to believe it. Let go of the costume. The world doesn't need another flawless robot. It needs you. Raw, honest, imperfect, alive. Your value isn't in how much you produce or how little you ask for. It's in how fully you show up as yourself, with shaky voice, with trembling hands, with messy thoughts. The journey out of perfection isn't about lowering your standards. It's about reclaiming your humanity, about recognizing that every flaw you hide is actually a piece of your freedom. The freedom to breathe, to rest, to be, without earning it. If you felt trapped by this invisible addiction, check the pinned comment below. We've selected materials to help you start breaking free. And if this spoke to you, leave a comment. What's the moment you realized that perfection was killing your joy? In the next part, we'll go even deeper, because to truly heal, we have to face the one relationship that taught us how to betray ourselves in the first place. There comes a point when you're no longer a child, but still live like one. You're grown, independent, perhaps even successful, but something inside still flinches at the idea of disappointing your mother, still panics at the thought of disapproval, still chases her smile like it's oxygen. This is the silent wound that shapes so many lives, the mother wound. It's not about blame, it's about recognition, because until you name the fear, you'll keep obeying it. You'll keep editing yourself to avoid upsetting the woman who taught you love could be withdrawn at any moment. For some, this wound is subtle, a comment here, a raised eyebrow there. For others, it's a legacy of emotional control, guilt-tripping, or manipulation disguised as concern. I just want what's best for you. After everything I've done, don't be ungrateful. These phrases are not love. They're tactics. They keep you small, dependent, easily shaped. Carl Jung would call this the domination of the false self archetype, a self built to serve the emotional needs of another. And if you're always trying to prove you're good enough for her, you're not living. You're still performing. Men and women alike carry this legacy. The daughter who can't rest until her mother is pleased. The son who chooses careers, partners, and values that aren't his, but were expected of him. And when they try to reclaim their truth, they feel guilt. Not because they're doing wrong, but because guilt is the leash that keeps them obedient. This isn't love, it's entanglement, it's identity theft. You were not born to be a reflection of someone else's fears. You were born to become who your soul truly is. And that path often begins with one terrifying word: no. Setting emotional boundaries with a mother figure feels like betrayal. That's why so many avoid it. But what's the real betrayal? Saying no to manipulation? Or saying no to your own life so she feels in control? You are not selfish for needing space. You are not cruel for craving autonomy. That's the natural process of individuation, the sacred journey Jung described, where the self separates from the collective expectations to become whole. But here's the catch. Many mothers, especially those who never healed themselves, will see your growth as rejection, as punishment, as rebellion, and that's not your burden to carry. This healing isn't about confrontation, it's about clarity. You don't need a screaming match to set yourself free. You need to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You need to stop folding every time guilt knocks at your door. Liberation doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's silent decisions. A boundary you don't justify. A visit you choose not to make. A truth you finally say without fear. You don't owe anyone your silence, especially not the version of you that had to die so they could feel in control. But be warned, when you stop pleasing, the backlash comes. The emotional storms, the accusations, the withdrawal. And that's when your healing is tested, not when you say no, but when you hold the no in the face of their disappointment. This is how self-worth recovery happens, not through applause, but through resistance. Through standing firm when the old guilt scripts try to pull you back. You'll feel shaky, lonely, even wrong. But that's not truth, it's detox. The pain of shedding a role you were never meant to play. The agony of choosing yourself for the first time. This is also when the inner child healing begins, when you sit with that younger version of you, the one who believed love had to be earned, and tell them they're safe now. They don't have to smile to be loved. They don't have to shrink to be accepted. They don't have to agree to survive. That's when the real mother energy is born. Not the one you received, but the one you become. Nurturing, fierce, protective of your truth. Whether you're male or female, this inner mothering is your birthright. A part of you was waiting for this all along. And when you finally breathe without her voice in your head, something sacred happens. Space. Space to explore who you are without fear. Space to choose partners, paths, and purposes that reflect your soul, not someone else's script. That's where we're going next. Because once the mask is off and the leash is cut, what remains is terrifying, but also beautiful. It's the blank page, the unknown self, the beginning of who you were always meant to be. You've spent your whole life being good, but have you ever been free? Have you ever made a decision without guilt whispering in your ear? Have you ever said no and felt peace instead of panic? That's the invitation now, not to rebel, but to return, to come home to the parts of yourself you silenced just to be accepted. Healing isn't about cutting ties, it's about cutting the leash, the one that kept you obedient, small, and afraid of your own voice. You don't owe anyone your silence, your sacrifice, or your soul. Start small. Say what you really mean, even if your voice shakes. Rest when you feel tired, not when the checklist is done. Choose what you want, not what they'll approve of. Each time you do, you plant a seed of self-worth that no one else can uproot. That's the work. It's not loud, it's not glamorous, but it's sacred, because the day you stop performing is the day you begin to truly live. So here's your moment of truth. What role have you been playing that no longer fits? Leave a comment and name it, because naming it is the first act of freedom. And if this video helped you break even one chain, share it, subscribe, turn on notifications. You're not alone in this journey, and there's more coming. Don't forget to check the selected materials in the pinned comment below. They were chosen to support your healing process in a practical, powerful way.